Welcome to the Time to Pet software tutorial. Now I'm going to run through everything that you need to know for how I use the software. There could be some features on here that I don't use that you might want to use. Have a play around with it yourself. It's very intuitive, so generally anything that you want to use it for is probably on there. But what I will say is there are a lot of features that you won't need. For instance, they have a thing called a client portal. So the client can set up an account with Time to Pet. And I would say don't do this because your clients can request bookings, update their own information, and I think it just makes things a little bit messy. I would just keep things straightforward and have your clients making bookings through just WhatsApp or text rather than going through the software. They have the features where clients can pay for their invoices on Time to Pet. Do not use that. They also have features for if the account is used by a company and have multiple staff. So anything that mentions staff, just don't use. On a day-to-day basis, I use Time to Pet on my phone, but I do not like the app. I go onto the Internet Explorer, I think it's Safari on my iPhone. The layout on that is the same as what I use on the PC. I just find that way easier. So there won't be any app tutorial. If you want to have a look at that, you're welcome to do so. You might prefer it. I'm not going to be going into everything in so much depth because it will be several hours long. On the Time to Pet YouTube channel, they have about 4 hours of video that I have just been through and condensed it down. So in a sec, I will pass you on to a presentation from them. So when you get to this screen here, do your free trial. You get it for 14 days. And then when your free trial comes to an end, you can set up your account. You'll have to set up your payment information there. Use this referral code. And by doing that, you get 50% off your first 3 months. And then I get $100 credit, which I'm more than happy to split 50-50 with you. I will just give you the money. Once Time to Pet have paid me, I'll give you half of that. It is quite expensive, $40, but it is absolutely worth it. It used to take me hours to do my invoices at the end of the month and my bookings. Oh, it's a nightmare. This has got everything that you need admin wise all in one. It's a dream to work with. So now I'm going to pass you over to a nice chap from Time to Pet where he's going to run over everything with you, and then after he's finished I will show you how I use Time to Pet on a day-to-day basis, going over bookings and invoices and basically whatever I use it for. So I'll see you on the other side.
To add a new client to your Time to Pet account, click the Add a Client button found in the Clients dropdown in the left sidebar. When adding a client, Time to Pet is looking for just some basic information about that customer. That will include information like their name, their email, and their phone number. You'll also notice that on the bottom of the screen there is a Client Welcome Email checkbox. If you choose not to send the client welcome email, you can always do so at a later point. After all of the information has been entered, you can click the blue Create Client button to create your new client account. Let's next review how to add a new service type to your Time to Pet account. All service information can be found in the Services dropdown, and you can add a new service by clicking the plus New Service button. When adding a new service, Time to Pet will ask you some basic information about that service type. For example, the service name is what you call this service. If this was your 30-minute dog walking service, you can name it 30-minute dog walk. The default duration is how long this particular service type lasts on your calendar. Again, if this was 30-minute dog walking, you would set this to 30 minutes. You can choose whether or not this service is going to be selectable or non-selectable by your customers. If we scroll to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that Time to Pet also supports rate information for your services. First up is the default cost. This is the default cost of your service, but please keep in mind that in Time to Pet, you can set custom rates on a client-by-client basis. This is the default cost that most of your customers will pay. The scheduler is the core of Time to Pet, and this is where you'll probably find yourself spending the majority of your time. There are 3 main actions that you can take here in the scheduler section. First is viewing all of your scheduled events. This is also where you can rearrange and edit all of your events. And lastly, the scheduler is a great place to schedule new events for your customers. First, let's talk about how you can view all of your events here in the scheduler. TimeToPet also supports several different views of the calendar. You'll see that this particular calendar is currently set to a week, but if you wanted to change this, just click any of the drop-downs here in the top left of the screen. Next up, let's talk about how you can edit or rearrange your events in the calendar. To edit this information, just click the Edit Event button. The Edit Event screen allows you to make changes to this specific event. That includes the date and the time of the service type, the staff member, the pets that are included for this event, and the status. You'll also notice that there is a client time display field on this screen. In TimeToPet, we do use a real calendar to schedule events at real times, but for many of our customers, they do not want to share the exact times of their events with their customers. That's exactly what client time display is for. Instead of your customer seeing that this event is scheduled at 1 p.m., they'll see that this event is scheduled in the afternoon. That, of course, gives you and your team more flexibility as you are completing events. Lastly, let's talk about how to schedule events for your customers via the calendar. Of course, in TimeToPet, your customers can request their own services via the client app or the client portal, but if your customer is calling you on the phone and wants you to schedule events for them, you can do so right from here. To schedule events for your customer, click the blue Schedule Client button in the top right. TimeToPet will then ask you which customer these events are for. Let's select our customer, John Doe. At this point, it's important to talk about how invoicing works in our system. In TimeToPet, invoicing is intrinsically linked to scheduled events. That means that when you schedule events for your customers or when you approve one of their service order requests, TimeToPet will automatically generate the invoice for you. In some cases, you may want to add these events to an existing invoice instead of creating a new invoice. To do so, just click the drop-down and select the invoice you want to add these events to. Let's say in this case, John Doe is going on a new trip, so we'll create a new invoice for him. The very next screen is showing us a service order. In TimeToPet, a service order is a grouping of events that are associated with one particular invoice. You'll see that this invoice is number 1377. There are three really simple ways to schedule events in our system. First up, you can click anywhere on the calendar, and TimeToPet will automatically set the day and the time for you, and you can then set the service type, the staff, the pets, and all of the additional information. You can also schedule an event by clicking the Add Event button in the top right of the service order. When clicking Add Event, TimeToPet will give you the same screen, except the date and the time are not preset. You'll see that all of these events have been scheduled, and if we go ahead and check our invoice, the invoice has been created as well. As I mentioned, TimeToPet does have a great tool for all of your regular recurring customers. That is called templates. Templates allow you to set a recurring set of services that will be invoiced based on the billing frequency that you choose. For example, if you bill all of your regulars weekly, then you can create weekly templates for them that will schedule and invoice every single week. Templates can also be set up to schedule bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. We highly recommend reading our help documentation related to templates because, in my opinion, templates are the most important tool in TimeToPet for any pet sitting or dog walking business that has regular recurring customers. Next up is the Services and Invoices tab. Services and Invoices is a complete history of all of the invoices and all of the events that have ever been assigned to this particular customer. TimeToPet does not have a limit on the information that we'll store for you, so if this is a customer of yours for 10 years, you'll see 10 years worth of data here. The Pets tab is where you can see all of the information about this client's pets. You also have the ability to edit this information for them. The Rates tab is where you can set those custom rates on a client-by-client basis. You'll see that the standard rate for dog walking is $30, but for this particular customer, they have a custom rate set to $35. Custom rates can either be a flat dollar amount, or you can set them as a percentage. Next up is the Keys tab. If you have keys in your possession for this customer, you can create keys for them right here. Lastly, in the client profile is the Docs section. The Docs section is where you can upload documents directly to a client's account. Next up, let's take a look at the Invoicing section in TimeToPet. First up is the invoice list. The invoice list is a complete breakdown of all of the invoices in your Time to Pet account. If you need to make any changes to one of these invoices, just click the Edit button found on the far right. You can edit many details of your invoices, such as the invoice number, the invoice date, and the invoice due date. Just as a heads up, you can set custom rules for when your invoice date and your invoice due date are set by visiting the Invoice Settings section. Time to Pet also allows you to customize all of the line items on an invoice. Just click the pencil icon, and when you've made your changes, click the floppy disk icon to save. You can also email this invoice to your customer by clicking the email button. You can download this invoice as a PDF. Now, in many cases, you may want to perform actions to your invoices in bulk. Time to Pet has created bulk invoicing just for that. In bulk invoicing, you'll simply set your filter at the top of the screen and then search, and Time to Pet will show you all of your invoices that match your filter settings. To perform actions to these invoices in bulk, just check the checkboxes next to each invoice. And then with one click, you can email all of these invoices at once. Time to Pet has many different report options, which you can find here. And then you can generate a report by setting the date range and clicking Generate. You can also download all of these reports as spreadsheets if you need to do so. The first settings page is Company Settings General. Company Settings General allows you to customize all of the information about your business, like your company name, your company website, your social media pages, and your address. Lastly, in the company settings is the Theme section. Theme is where you can configure how your Time to Pet account looks and feels for you. You can configure your logos, the dashboard colors. Let's now jump to the Invoicing and Payments settings section. First up here is Invoice Settings. This is where you can configure a lot of the information about your invoices. For example, you can add an invoice note that is attached to every invoice you generate, or you can customize the rules around your invoice due date and your invoice date. Next up is Client Settings. Client Settings General is where you can configure how your customers appear in Time to Pet. By default, we'll just show the human's name, but you can configure this to show the human's name and the pet name, or the pet name first and then the human name.